Hey everyone, welcome to another macro photography video. So I'm in the forest again, and as you can see, the first signs of spring are starting to show up. The first snowdrops and aconite are blooming, and I can hear some of the birds singing their first songs of the year. So I'll take you along for a little photo walk, and let's see what I can find. So right here I found a tiny little Dicertoma fusca globular springtail, and these can be kind of difficult to photograph, but this one is staying fairly still, so I'm going to try for a portrait. And first of all, I'm just going to adjust my magnification to get it right for such a small subject. And something like that should work. Find the springtail and frame up my shot, and then just go ahead and shoot a stack. So right here I found another really cool subject, which is a patch of slime molds. And these can seem kind of difficult to photograph at first. I mean, it's a really large patch of them, and if you include the whole thing in frame, it could be just kind of busy and messy. So what I like to do is to focus in close on just a small selection of these fruiting bodies. But still there's the challenge of which ones to shoot. So I tend to like to just take a few minutes to just look around this patch and look for what might be a nice composition. So I found my shot, which is just two fruiting bodies that have kind of grown together and are framed really nicely by the ones in front of them. So I'm going to take a quick single shot just to make sure that I've got my settings right, and then go ahead and get my stack. So whenever you find a big patch of subjects like this, it's always worth taking a few different angles just to have a choice of which shot is your favorite at the end. So I'm going to look around here for one kind of neat, clean one just to get a much higher magnification shot and show the textures of the fruiting body. So I think I found a good one here, and I will start at the front again and get my stack. Unfortunately, right after filming that last clip, my microphone ran out of battery, so I'm back out in the forest a couple of days later to finish with filming that video. But before I get on with this walk, let me just quickly show you a couple more of the photos that I got the other day. Alright, so first of all, I've got this cool little spider, which I haven't really photographed many times before. I believe it is some kind of sheet web spider in the family Linyphiidae. And along with this simple portrait, I also got a vertical portrait like this, which means that the light from my diffuser is coming from the side. And this can be quite a useful technique for getting a bit more interesting lighting when you're just using a simple on-camera flash and diffuser. Next, I've got this beautiful, vibrant, red, flat bark beetle, or Cucujdus cinnaberinus. And this species is globally classified as near threatened, but it's actually not that rare in some areas of Germany. But I've only ever seen the larvae, so I was really excited to see this bright red adult, and I was surprised how big they are. It's almost 2.5 centimeters if I had to guess. But this portrait was a bit challenging since it was moving around a bit, but I did manage to get this shot eventually, and I'm really happy with the result. And finally, probably my favorite find of the day are these two Philodromos margaritatus wrenning crab spiders. This first one had a really interesting green and black mottled coloration, and I was able to get this portrait of it. And the other individual is a male, which you can tell by the very large pedipalps at the front. And this portrait is quite a big stack again, I think 140 individual images. But if you zoom in, you can see that the scales of this spider almost look like tiny little feathers, which I find really fascinating. And I also got a top-down stack of this same individual, which was quite difficult because it is actually too big for my Laowa 25mm lens. So I had to take two individual stacks, one of the top of the spider, of the cephalothorax, and one mostly with the abdomen, and then stitch them together like a panorama to get the whole thing in focus, which is a challenging technique, but in this case, along with just getting the whole spider in frame, also results in a lot of detail, and you can really zoom all the way in and see those feathery scales. One place I can almost always find some really cool subjects to photograph is underneath the bark of fallen pine trees. Now, my local forest is a relatively new one. Most of it was planted after the war, and one of the most planted trees was Scots pine, so there's a lot of them around to choose from. And the red bark beetle and the two Philodromos margaritatus wrenning crab spiders from the other day were both found underneath pine bark. And right here I found what looks like a really good pine log that there could be some interesting stuff on. Right underneath this little log, I found one of my very favorite springtails to photograph, a gorgeous little Tomoceras vulgaris. And these little guys have beautiful iridescent colorful scales that, if the light catches them just right, can make for a beautiful photo. So what I tend to do, I want to position my diffuser so that it is covering almost all of the subject. So the springtail's right here, and I'm going to try and shoot from an angle like this, so that you can see the diffuser, the light is coming from basically every direction. And that way it reflects off the scales of the springtail really nicely. And yeah, you'll see in the photo. Here we go. Sometimes, after seeing the same subject over and over again, you don't really pay it much attention anymore, and definitely don't bother photographing it. And woodlice are definitely like this for me. I see lots and lots of them under almost every single log I look under, and I've gotten so many photos of them that I just feel like I won't be able to get anything new. But occasionally I'll come across a scene that looks really interesting. Like under this log, I found a tiny little, what's called a beautiful pill woodlouse, or Armadillidium pulchellum, and I think it could make a really interesting photo. Underneath a little piece of bark, I found this little yellow thing, which looks quite unassuming at first until you take a closer look through a macro lens. And I'm pretty sure that this is a midge of some sort, in the process of molting from its larval form to adulthood. On another piece of wood, I found this beautiful nursery web spider, which is a little bit skittish, but I think it's still worth a try to see if I can get some stacks. Alright, so that ended up being quite a successful photo walk. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and check out my Instagram to see more of my photos, and yeah, see you in the next video. So I found a very interesting little spider underneath this piece of bark, and he's gone.